Te Tai o Poutini, the wild west coast. It's a rugged land that breeds rugged people, self-reliant, hard-working and resourceful. This whenua is remote and wild, where alpine vistas meet lush rainforests and ancient glaciers feed winding blue rivers. But it's the hidden spoils of this landscape that saw it become the birthplace of two new worlds. For the Pākehā settlers, it was gold, the promise of riches drawing people from all over the world. But for the Māori who came before them, it was the glistening green of the rivers, a stone that would signify the beginning of a new age. These are their descendants, the kaitiaki of the taonga, and this is their story.
Yeah, it's got like a powder, but then it's sort of shiny. See it glisten when you move it around? Like it's a peace stone. It should have a peaceful feeling. It was used to kill people. See, our chief, Tuhuru, he had a mere, and it was a big one. He killed people. It should never have been used for a stone of war. It makes no sense whatsoever that a stone of the gods, a peace stone, a healing stone, is used to kill people. When you get oil in it, it'll change. When you're wearing it, it'll go shiny. And if you leave it on there long enough, the oil is going to go deeper into the stone, so it becomes more and more transparent the longer you wear it. My DNA is going into that stone. Everything about me is in there. It's part of you. So if you keep it in your family, you can have a lot of people in here after a few generations. Every greenstone has someone who found it. So it's good to keep the story with the stone.
The story of Pounamu begins with the taniwha Poutini. One day, enchanted by her beauty, he captured Waitaiki from her island home of Tuhua and fled south. Pursued by her husband Tamaahua, he zigzagged across the land until finally he came to the mouth of the Arahura River. Knowing Tamaahua would soon be there to claim back his love, Poutini carried Waitaiki up to the headwaters, where he threw her into the awa, transforming her into Pounamu.
For some unknown reason, our people seem to think that the story of Poutini and Waitaiki and Tamaahua is a love story. I don't sort of think how it could be a love story when a lady's been taken to somewhere totally foreign to her and changed into something and laying on this particular riverbed. Poutini went past down there and he still remains on the coastline here, which our coastline takes the name of Te Tai o Poutini. Ngāti Wāwai, our people, we travelled up and down the coastline, following our seasons, gathering kai. But we're also following the old traditional trading routes, the Pounamu pathways, what we call it. So we're always carrying pounamu up and down the coastlines here, distributing it out to various iwi, connect them with other people that were living in these particular areas. Very nomadic, cruising up and down. Eventually, ihunuku mātou ki konei, and this is where we set up here. Probably not by our choice. Obviously, this is one of the reserves that was set aside for us, and this is where our people have been since then. Tēnei wā kei Arahuda tonu mātou, kei te taha tō mātou hāhi, tēnei whare karakia nei, kei tērā taha hoki tō mātou, te kāinga noho a mātou pāpa, tō mātou taua, koina tō mātou whare. Ko mātou te whānau Mason, tō mātou taua me ki, tō mātou kuia e kātene, anō roto hāwera. Ko tō mātou paua, no konei. Koe hoki tētahi o ngā rua tekau māwaru, ngā hoia, wehe mai konei. Tō mātou waimari e hoki pai mai aia. Titaki atu tō mātou kuia, katahi, tipurea tō mātou pāhara keke. This is where we all grew up as tamariki and that. Where we are here, we're on Old School Road, and so this here was the old native school. A lot of our people attended that kura. I think we followed the name Arahuda after our river, the mana of the river. So sort of when anybody was asked where you're from, it was just straight Arahuda.
Te mokai, ko Arahuda te awa e, kati wai te hapu e, no pautene kai tahu e, no te wahi pounamu e. I believe singing to the awa helps with the pou find. There's so many different ways that people pounamu hunt. So you'll get the ones like my taua and her sisters. They'll have an outing to the awa. They'll make their way down onto the riverbed. They'll have a look around. They'll see which rocks they think look like good seats. And they'll all park themselves up and they'll sit there and they'll have a korero and they'd have their cigarette and they'd be catching up on, you know, all the whānau stuff and whatever. And then one of them would go, oh, look, Tilly, there's a bit over there, can you see it? I can't ever remember a time when I wasn't on the Arahuda River. Not just pounamu hunting, but we fished, pārtiki and mullet and the inaka. It was water at times. Life revolved around the awa. Yeah, I think it's spiritual because it brings you closer to your tupuna, you know, that have been before you. You know, like my taua and I have spent hours, weeks, years in this area. So even though she's gone, when I come here, it connects me and brings me closer to those memories.
The West Coast is a narrow 600-kilometre strip of land wedged between sea and mountains. It's sparsely populated, with just over 31,000 residents all up. There's only a few thousand Māori and 2 hapu. The homeland of Kati Waiwai is the Arahuda River, and more than 200 kilometres south in glacier country are Kati Mahaki ki mā Kāwhiō.
Usually we call ourselves Poutin in Kaitahu because, you know, Kaitahu take up so much of the motu. We like to single ourselves out and say, well, we're Kaitahu, but we're from the West Coast. So right now we're on the Makawhio River, situated just south of Fox Glacier and just north of the Mahitahi River. I've been brought down here since I was a baby. My whenua is actually buried just over there, the base of one of those raka over there. So there are only a couple of runaka here on the west coast, on Te Tai Potini. So you have Waiwai, a little bit further up north, and then you come down here and this is Kātimaha ki Makawhio. Is the hapu down here. I guess arguably our tipuna have been here since, I guess, Ngāi Tahu came over to the coast, since the Potini conquest. Originally there were only a couple of iwi on the west coast, and they had complete control over this resource called pounamu. Captain Cook said tempered in fire, greenstone would hold its edge longer and sharper than the iron on his ships. So a massive advancement for our people. My uncle refers to it as kind of being the wheel for us. One of our tipuna, Raureka, she climbed up and over this pass and she actually came across a group of kaitahu. They were trying to chop down a tree with pretty basic instruments until Raureka whipped out her pounamu tuki and showed them how to do it. From that point began peaceful trading between Kaitahu, who were based on the east coast, and these other tribes that were based on the west coast. Yeah, bro. And then, of course, human nature, Kaitahu decided that they were getting bigger and stronger, that they would just take over. And that's what they did. So if we're talking of war, we're usually referring to the 100 years of pounamu wars it took for us to claim mana whenua status.
The Pākehā explorer Thomas Brunner once declared, "There is nothing on the west coast worth incurring the expense of exploring." But the eventual discovery of great mineral wealth and natural resources created a population boom for the entire coast. And the remnants of a bygone era still exists today. Towns that once supported 4,000 or 5,000 people are today long abandoned. Once bustling settlements disappearing back into the rugged forests and hills from where they first sprang. And tangata whenua have watched them all come and go.
Well-renowned towns for the gold, sawmills, a lot of timber workers. Could well imagine they would have been bursting at the seams all the way through, heading south once upon a time, all the pubs, all the eateries. Once upon a time they were thriving towns, and they're ghost towns, shanty towns now, and that's just the way that it's gone. Hockey ticket team, first game of the season, but maybe 112, 113 years this club has been going for. A lot of our family have played. Nice. Good community thing, especially for these small communities too. It gets everybody out and about. Obviously, everyone will head home, so I'll be a rage of business all the way from here down to Haast. I mean, we went from not too many people, just small pockets of whānau and that living on the coast, and then just like that, once the word got out about gold rushes and those times, it was amazing how quick word got around the world. There was a boom in the number of ships, and obviously everybody that was aboard, they were coming out here to establish new lives. But the Māori community, just like right throughout the whole country, the devastating effects was a loss of language. Our numbers obviously dropped to viruses that weren't common amongst our people. Loss of whenua, especially here up and down the coastline. We're one of 18 papatipu runaka under Ngāi Tahu. We have a vast expanse of lands here on the west side of Te Tai Potini. And so I think it was around about that time, if it didn't have a fence around it, then it was open to anybody to be able to come in and grab. And so that's what was happening at that time. Our people were under the belief that we didn't need to have fences up because our boundaries, our mountains were our sentinels, our awa and our moana, you know, they were our boundaries. Kaha pehi i a mātou, a ngā tikanga ngā ture o te tauiwi.
So 4 generations ago, our tipuna from Scotland came over here. They were sort of the first to do black sand gold. Gold comes out either from up the creeks and out of the rivers, is turned in the ocean and then is brought up in the black sand. So it's heavy, so it holds the gold. Back in the day, one of the practices was that they would get the paunga, the tree ferns, and lay them in the river, and then you'd shovel your black sand onto that. So what would happen is the river would flow and it would push the sand away. Because the gold was heavy, it would sink in and actually get caught in the fibres of those paunga. And then at the end, you'd put that in a fire and burn all the fibres off and you were left with just the gold. As a young fella, I would come out here and shovel sand. And, you know, my grandfather practiced it, my nana. All of us have done stints doing the black sand. You know, we weren't really brought up with the reo, but we were brought up with the honokatu, the whenua, you know, the connection to the land. And that's where our Māori tonga was and lived for years. One of our kaumatua once said, you know, we might not have the reo, but we will survive. We know the reo of the whenua. That's what I always like to think. My grandfather, you know, he Pākehā here, but he flew helicopters and planes to hunt the tia, to shoot the deer. So he always instilled a lot of that mahi kakai, and then my nan, she was brought up, you know, by our papa. And he was super connected. And my mum always tells a story where he could look out and go, all right, we're going to have snapper for tea tonight. Just by reading the taiao and reading what was going on. Ooh-yah.
Most times you'll visit while you're here on the Taipotini, they will have collections of pounamu in their houses. My dad found this when he was 7 years old out at the old pā site, the old Wairaki pā, and he brought it home and my nana took it off him and put it away in a little bag and sat it in her jewellery box. And it never seen the light of day again until she passed away. And then my uncle found it and he said to me, niece, I've got a present for you. And yeah, so that's been worked. The Wairaki people were the first workers of the stone, so they were here before my people, Ngāi Tahu, came. So that's really old, quite unique wee artefact, that one.
For the people of Arohura and nearby Hokitika, pounamu has always held a special currency. First for its trading and weapons, and later as taonga. But it's also led to cultural tourism that's provided mahi for generations of pā kids.
This is my taua. She was Georgina Meihana. She was the youngest of the Meihana kids. There was 16 of them, 8 boys and 8 girls. She got her leg chopped off in 2014 and I moved home to look after her. And she said, you've only got to keep me alive for the marae opening moko. As long as she got to live that long, she was happy. And yeah, that was the day of the marae opening. Our toa is recognised as the first of the river guides on the Arahura River. She's taken some really renowned people. So one was the Dalai Lama. He always has 2 monks with him there as bodyguards. And she said to him while they were up the river, "Can you please send your people away?" And he was like, "Oh, you know, why is that?" And she said, "Because we're just 2 old people and I'd like to have a conversation with you without them around." So he sent them off. And she got to spend about an hour just sitting on the river chatting with the Dalai Lama.
Tourist numbers on the west coast are booming, and cultural tourism with it. For the people who call Arahura home, it's an opportunity to keep the stories of their tipuna alive.
Potini's still out here. Today the west coast is called Kitai or Potini. And Waitaiki's still up here. When there's floods and stuff, she'll break up into smaller pieces and eventually she makes her way out to the sea to Potini. So he still gets her, see? That was clever, eh? So we can try and get her before Potini does. When my father turned to be 20 years old, there wasn't much work here. So about a half a dozen of them went up to Wellington to find work in the 50s. But even today with my children, see, there's not much work here.
Yes.
So my children went to go and find work.
Yeah.
They got to go away. But my main goal was to create employment for our people who had to pay. I could pay well, because we're worth more than any other tour guide. It's our life.
Doing anything?
Not that one.
Not that one?
Those are something. Even them, after working me for a bit, next month they're off and they want to start tours, they want to do this and that. Oh, that's a nicer one.
That's a nicer one?
Yeah. And to say, I think I should have done what I set out to do. In a way, I helped them employ themselves. Have that one, did you put oil in it?
I did, I put a little.
Would you like to make it into a necklace?
I would.
Good job. I meet people from all over the world. Get to know them. And at the same time, they appreciate it because they get to know. See, I'm a kaitiaki of the greenstone. So, in a way, thank you. Because you're going to go back to Australia and you're going to say something about the greenstone. And if you say something over in Australia about the greenstone, I've done my job. I'm actually trying to sell them. I give them more for their money. That's what I got to do. He's both right in there, okay?
All right.
I don't know if they have more fun than me, but I think they do, because they sign a book. I keep checking for amazing. They write amazing on them.
Thank you so much for your time today. It was just
You're
beautiful.
welcome.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay.
Have a lovely day. Alrighty.
Same.
Okay.
There's hope here on the coast that in respecting the stories of their tipuna, the people of Te Tai o Potini are also shaping a future for generations to come.
Yeah, a lot of people that are interested. The way that the world is going today, especially here in Aotearoa, you know, it's having that cultural component to things now. That's what really grasps everybody. Giving them a little bit more of a realisation of what's actually in their own backyard. Certainly what we've got at the moment is we've got a big bag full of goodies. And what it is just trying to put all of those goodies in place to making sure that when our next generations come through, you know, there's just a little bit in place for them. Just like how we've got. We haven't just woke up one morning and thought, oh yeah, this is how it is, you know, we're just continuing something that our tupuna have left for us too. It's looking quite promising.